Hey, how's it going everyone? It's Blake here from ChessPathways.com. Today I want to show another game I played, showing my weapon that I use against the Sicilian Dragon instead of the very popular Yugoslav attack. And I think it has some pros and cons, so let's talk about it. I have the white pieces here. This is just a blitz game. c5, d6, we get a open Sicilian. Black plays g6, the dragon, f3, bishop g7, bishop e3, castle, queen d2, knight c6. And if you want some more background on this, certainly feel free to type in Chess Pathways Sicilian Dragon. You'll find my video on it. Don't do it now because it's bad for the YouTube algorithm, but certainly after this video, feel free to check out that video on the dragon. And here, a lot of players play bishop c4. This is the Yugoslav attack, right? White wants to play bishop c4, castle long, and simply attack on the king side, h4, h5, bishop h6, trade off the bishop, and as Bobby Fischer once said, sack, sack, mate, right? Just go right after that black king. If we look at the main line there, for example, let's say bishop c4, bishop d7, castle long, rook c8. Here, black gets a tempo on this bishop, right? The bishop has to move again, bishop b3, and now black's going to trade it off, knight e5, knight c4, we have to move the bishop again. So we end up making 3 bishop moves to trade the bishop off, right? So the move I've been liking here as white is just simply castling long without playing bishop c4. And now, if black's not prepared, if your opponent doesn't know how to handle this, and they play the same way, if they simply play, bishop d7, rook c8, knight e5, knight c4, you can take straight from f1 and save 2 tempos, right? And 2 tempos is completely decisive in this super sharp, race to the king, right? So black can really get themselves in trouble if they play that way. Now, what's the downside of omitting bishop c4? The only real downside is that black can now play d5. That's the whole reason you play bishop c4. At least one of them. The second is that it aims at the king, of course. So after d5, the move here is king b1, at least the move that I play here. King b1. So black's kind of blowing up the center. It's going to be harder just to go mate the black king, right? You can't really just attack on the flank when the center is going to be opened up. But king b1's a good move here, tucking the king away and kind of tactically defending this e4 pawn. Think about what would happen if black were to play d takes e4. Looks desirable for them, but go ahead and pause the video here if you want. White has a win here. White wins a piece after knight takes c6. White wins a knight, and black can't take back because their queen's hanging. And they can't trade queens first and then take back, because why? We have a Zwischenzug, knight takes e7, saving the knight with check, and then we'll take our queen back and we stay up a piece. That's why king b1 is very important. If queen takes d2 was check, we couldn't do this, right? So king b1, they can't play d takes e4. Black's most popular move here is knight takes d4, and here we have another nice in-between move. We don't just take back. If we just take back, black just blows the center wide open and we really get nothing. The whole point is you meet knight takes d4 with pawn to e5. Black's up a piece for now, but they have 2 pieces under attack, and they can't keep their extra piece. Now, black has tried moves like knight takes f3, trying to at least get a pawn for their piece. But that kind of position is pretty favorable for white. d5 is still going to be very weak after this knight has to move. It might just fall. So there's a couple main lines here. The one that happened in the game is kind of the main line, at least in my opinion, and I think it's pretty fun. So knight f5, black saves the d-knight. We take on f6. They take back. We take a pawn, material is equal again, but black has a lot of concerns here, right? They have a bishop under attack, that's their valuable dragon bishop. If we take it with check, their queen will fall, right? Or at least a rook will fall in the back rank. So what's black to do here? Black really is forced to sacrifice the queen. Queen takes d5, queen takes, knight takes, and black picks up another exchange. And we're left to play this position right here. This position's probably the main line after the kind of anti-Yugoslav attack, castle long straightaway option, if black knows their stuff and plays d5. So let's take stock of what's going on here after the queen sacrifice. We have a queen for a dark bishop and rook, straight up, right? So by point count, we're 1 point ahead, right? 9 for 8. But black's hoping they can generate a lot of threats to our king. One maneuver you have to know here is swinging the bishop around. This bishop has to make itself useful somehow, and it has to help defend the king. There's no other good square for it. So bishop e6, taking aim at the king, right? Usually you don't block in the center pawn, but here, of course, there's no reason this pawn has to move. Black has no development needs that require that pawn to move. So bishop e6, bishop e5, and black has a couple options here. I think black played the main line in the game. You play rook d8, a6, kick the bishop, and now rook d4. The idea is you tempo the bishop, and that lets you possibly double rooks if you want to. There's another main line where black tries to expand with pawns, where it's like a6, b5, takes, and a5. That's another main line, trying to rip open lines to the king. I believe there's a funny line here where white can play king a2, and after a4, the idea is if black ever takes and opens the a file, you take with the king, and black, surprisingly, can't really get to the king on b3. It's actually almost totally safe there. That's one other option to know. If white can make their king safe in this line, then white should be better, right? White's up by point count, and the queen's a very strong piece, of course, in the long term. So, bishop b5, rook d8, queen e2, a6, bishop a4, rook d4, bishop b3, takes, and rook a to d8. Now, this is move 21. It's about to be move 22, and this is all still theory. This has been played several times before. Kind of hard to believe. But I was on my own here. I knew this wasn't some, original position. I knew this looks like it has to have been played before, but I wasn't really sure off the top of my head what to do. I played g4, which turns out it's one of the moves here that white has tried, which makes sense. Just making sure these pawns aren't going to be falling if black gets to the second rank. Black really has trouble making threats to the king because this c pawn's in the way. It's hard to coordinate with this bishop on the second rank. So simply g4, rook d2, queen e4, king g7. I'm not sure if it's necessary for black to play moves like king g7. Maybe black should play b5 and try to hold on to their queenside pawns. I know the pawns could still be weak. The queen could swing around and try to pick them up, and it's kind of hard to see what threats black is making. But I think it's probably better not to give up b7. So here I threw in h4 first, thinking about playing h5. They played h6, and I thought now was a good time to just go ahead and take on b7, because an extra passed pawn here could be very valuable in the long term. Again, this would be a great training position if you want practice playing these material imbalanced endgames, the queen for the rook and bishop. Go ahead and set this up on a board, play it against a computer for both sides. It'd be great practice to see how to play an endgame like this and analyze it afterwards. But okay, black goes ahead and saves the a-pawn. h5, g5. I thought that was good just to force them to commit another pawn to a dark square, take away any, bishop g5 options later, perhaps. So okay, now I go ahead and threaten the a-pawn, they defend it, I activate my rook, bishop b4, queen b7, they come back. And here I played b4, kind of the first big decision in a while. I wanted to try to target this pawn without exchanging it off, but it's going to be very hard. I only really have a queen and rook, I can't really win this pawn. So I thought, okay, let's trade it off, and I have connected passed pawns now. Now the downside is now black can try to make threats on the b file against b2. I just didn't see their rooks being able to coordinate that effectively against b2 in this particular circumstance. So I'm not sure if that plan was the most accurate. Of course, time was already a big factor here, this being a blitz game. But let's go ahead and see how the game kind of finished up here. So rook f2, queen e4, rook d2, they double on the second rank. I play b4, starting to march my passed pawn. It might be premature. I am a little worried about the king. And I think black missed some real chances to punish this. Yeah, so rook d4, queen b7, rook d2. I think here I'm still fine. I should probably play here just rook c1, put the rook behind the pawn, have the rook help in the defense. I blundered in serious time pressure here and played b5. I don't think this, at least I think it's a blunder. I haven't really looked at the computer yet. But I think this is bad because it allows rook b4 check. And I feel like now, really for the first time, black really is able to coordinate an attack on my king with all three pieces, which they kind of have to do to get any serious threats made. So they back up, try to defend the pawn. I took on e7, trying to sack the exchange and threaten f7. If black simply takes the exchange, I thought I was okay here. In a position like this, I thought, first of all, there could be threats to the king, but even worst case scenario, even if black can coordinate the rooks and take the pawn back, I still have an extra pawn for the queen, and I thought, if nothing else, I shouldn't lose this. I shouldn't lose this position. Of course, the real danger is if black does not accept the sacrifice and tries to mate me. So I saw they have bishop b2 check, and I have to walk into some dangerous-looking discoveries. I guess black has a draw if they want it. They can back up and give check again, and I have to repeat. At least I think. I can't walk out, can I? There's nothing like this, is there? Maybe there is. King a2, because if you give check, I walk out. I think I'm walking out. Still looks very scary, though. But no, looking at this now, this might be winning for me. I guess black can't really defend my threats to f7. If they take, I think I'm in a good spot now. Your rooks are so discoordinated. There's queen e5, fork threats, and there's no more checks. So maybe I can walk out. But yeah, so bishop c3, they tried to, I don't know what they did here. I think it's just a blunder with, 10 seconds on their clock. It happens. They tried to, I think they were trying to set up some mate here with the corner, but they forgot my pawn's not on b3. I guess that's the only reason that would be mate. But I just walk out and win the game. So sloppy finish, but a very interesting line. If you like those very aggressive attacking setups against the dragon, but you want to, maybe play something a little bit more offbeat, don't let your opponent play their favorite main line against the Yugoslav and make them really know their stuff in this sideline with castles long. Again, black can really get in trouble if they don't know their stuff against castles long here. If they play it like the main line, they can get in trouble. If they play d5, you know what to do. You play king b1, and you can follow the main line of this game if they go ahead and take on d4. You play that e5 in between move and get a very exciting game. All right, thanks for watching, everyone. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button down below right now. And make sure you also visit chesspathways.com and get signed up there. It's totally free, only takes 5 seconds, and I'll send you a free move-by-move guide to chess thinking when you sign up. Thanks, and I'll see you over there.